Yeah, Mansi, Asha, Hemprabha, Shrishti. So, can you just give your introduction? Hello, Savi. Yeah, Mansi. Okay.
So I'm Mansi. I'm in the first year. I'm from Bangalore. That's
She is from BSc first semester. BSc Honors Marine Science. Yeah, Savi.
I'm Savi Kunyo from first semester and I'm from Nagaland.
Yeah. Yeah, Hemprabha.
Good morning, ma'am. I'm Hemprabha Mandavi from Chhattisgarh, Bhilai, and I'm from first semester of BSc Marine Honors.
Good morning, everybody.
And I think some are having some internet issues. So Akhil Biju is our alumni this year. He has completed his masters from AIMST, and Surbi and Srishti is from BSc Honors Marine Science, fourth semester. Then Aisha is also from the first semester. Okay.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Upmanyu Nida is also there, and Pradeep ma'am also is there. Pradeep ma'am is the executive in AIMST. So hope you will get to know each other. So over to you, Usha. Meanwhile, I think all are joining within that time.
You can start now.
Yes, over to you, Usha.
Good morning, everybody. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, yes, you are there.
Okay.
Yes,
Fine.
ma'am.
Okay, fine. Sure. Can we start? Should we start, ma'am?
Yes, 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 Dr. Usha, you can start.
Is it okay, ma'am? The slide is fully visible.
Yes. Uh,
Okay. Thank you, Jagdish. Just look at that. Okay. So, ma'am, will start. Should I start, sir?
yes, 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 definitely.
Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Usha Jyoti Maji, and right now I'm going to deliver a talk on the topic probiotics in aquaculture. So let me begin with aquaculture and the need for probiotics. As we know that aquaculture is a very fast growing sector, and to meet the demand there is intensification of the aquaculture production. And due to this, there is an emerging of new pathogens which are all viral, bacterial, fungi and parasitical disease causing pathogens. The economic loss to aquaculture is more due to these disease problems. Now, the major bacterial pathogens of fish generally includes the gram-negative species like your Aeromonas salmonicida, which causes your furunculosis, your Escherichia racari causing the enteric red mouth disease, your Vibria angularum causing your vibriosis. Now, usually the fish are protected from disease either through your vaccination or with chemotherapeutic treatment like your antibiotics, which have certain limitations in their uses. Now, what are vaccines? Vaccines are generally a biological preparation, often made from the weakened or the killed forms of the microbe causing the disease, or its inactivated toxins, or one of its surface proteins. which induces your protective immunity to a particular infectious disease. Now, vaccines have certain limitations. What are the limitations? Now, usually the vaccines are ineffective against immunologically immature fishes. Also, individual vaccination of fishes in culture conditions have certain limitations. Moreover, there are many bacterial pathogens which have multiple strains. For example, your Aeromonas hydrophila. Aeromonas hydrophila is a heterogeneous species with multiple strains and high tolerance. That makes the development of vaccine indeed very difficult. So till date, no commercial vaccines are available to many infection against many important pathogens because of the failure of the vaccine to confer protection against these heterologous strains. Now moving on to the antibiotics. Now antibiotics, we know these are antimicrobial agents which can be defined as substances that have the capacity to kill or inhibit the growth of microorganisms. Now as you all must be knowing that the first antibiotic, it was your penicillin discovered by Alexander Fleming in 1928. Now based on their molecular structures and physicochemical properties, the antibiotics are usually grouped into different classes like your tetracyclines, sulfonamides, macrolides, beta-lactams, etc. Now, usually the common used antibiotics in aquacultures are your oxytetracyclines, tetracyclines, amoxicillin, ampicillin, erythromycin, sulfonamides, oxalic acids. Now, the use of these antibiotics in aquaculture specifically can be characterized as therapeutic, metaphylactic, or prophylactic. Therapeutic use corresponds to treatment of established infection. Infection is there, you are giving the antibiotic for the curing. Metaphylaxis is a term which is used for group medication, means that aims to treat sick animals while also acting as a preventive to the others. The prophylaxis means when antibiotic is only given as a preventive to prevent the development of any foreseen or unforeseen infections. Now in aquaculture nowadays, antibiotics at therapeutic levels are frequently administered for short periods of time via the oral route to groups of fish that share the tanks or the cages, and this is very, very dangerous. Why? I'm going to discuss it now. Now let me first tell you just a brief idea on the mechanism of action of these antibiotics. Here I have just shown how the antibiotics execute their what is the mechanism of action. But generally, the antibiotics work by two mechanisms. It has the bactericidal effect, that is the antibiotic generally kills the bacteria by interfering with the formation of your bacterial cell wall or any of its important contents. Example, your penicillin, this is how penicillin works. Or it has a bacteriostatic effect, that is the antibiotic stops the bacteria from multiplying by interfering with any of the vital important cellular machinery, like it will inhibit your DNA synthesis or RNA synthesis, it will stop the protein production and like this. Example is this is how your tetracyclines, your sulfonamides and your chloramphenicol works. Now moving on to the most important thing, that is the development of antibiotic resistance. Now due to unhygienic conditions prevailing in fish raising methods, this has increased the possibility of the rapid spread of microbial infections in aquaculture. And this scenario has resulted in an augmented use of prophylactic antibiotics. Now, the most common route for delivery of antibiotics to fish occurs through mixing of these antibiotics with specially formulated feed. However, fish, being the lower vertebrates, they do not absorb the antibiotics completely in their intestine. The fish do not effectively metabolize the antibiotics and will pass a large amount of them unused back into the environment in fecal matters. It has been estimated that almost 75 to 80% of the antibiotics fed to the fish are excreted into the water. This inappropriate, you can say irrational, unscientific, prophylactic and therapeutic use of antibiotics have resulted in your emergence, your spreading and persistence of antibiotic resistant bacteria and antibiotic resistant genes in the aquaculture environment. Now, antibiotic resistance takes two forms usually. Intrinsic, inherent, or the natural resistance, where there are some species of bacteria which do not normally are susceptible to a particular drug, means they are resistant. This may be due to the absence of the necessary target site in the cell, or the inability of the antibiotic or the antibacterial agent to enter the bacterial cell. Now the acute resistance. The acute resistance is the major cause of concern because of the transmissible nature of the resistance mechanism. In this case, the bacterial species is normally susceptible to a particular drug, but some strains express drug resistance. And when it is induced by the use of that antibiotic, which acts now as a selective pressure, then the initially susceptible populations of bacteria, usually they become resistant to the antibacterial agent and they proliferate and they spread. Now the genes responsible for antibiotic resistance are carried on your plasmids or transposomes or the integrons, which act as a vector and helps in transfer of these genes between members of the same species or members of different genera or species. This takes place through your horizontal gene transfer. Now, if during a normal bacterial division, what happens when usually the genetic material is transferred from the parent to the offspring, and that is the vertical transfer. But here in horizontal transfer, it is directly the swapping of the material between two neighboring bacteria, and this takes place through three mechanisms: transformation, transduction, and conjugation. In transformation, here you can see the naturally transformable bacteria The naturally transformable bacteria directly uptakes the foreign DNA from the external environment and acquires the antibiotic resistant gene. Am I audible?
Yes, yes. Yes, yes,
Did
yes.
the slides
You're
are
audible.
perfect?
You're audible. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, during transduction, what happens? The bacteria obtains the genes through infection with the bacteriophage or the virus that infects the bacteria, that is through your viral DNA. This is an important mechanism of resistance transference because of the high concentration of the bacteriophages in aquatic habitats or seawater sediments or the marine sediments. Now moving on to the conjugation. Conjugation involves your cell-to-cell mating, and here the antibiotic resistant gene transfer is mediated through formation of a pilus. Okay, here the plasmid carrying the antibiotic resistant gene is being transferred from the donor cell to the recipient cell through this pilus. This may occur between members of the same species or between bacteria from different genera or families. Now there are 5 ways in which a microorganism resists the antibiotics. How? Number 1 is alternation of the target site of the antibiotics. In such cases, the microorganisms will bring certain mutations on their target sites, which will inhibit the binding of the antimicrobials. Second is the enzymatic inactivation of the antibiotics. Now, the microorganisms may acquire certain genes which encode the enzymes that destroys the antibiotics. For example, your beta-lactamases destroys your beta-lactamins, that is your penicillin. Now, reduction of the inner and outer membrane permeability. The microorganisms may modify the body chemical composition to reduce the uptake of the antimicrobials. Fourth is the flush out of the drug or the efflux pump. Bacteria may also acquire efflux pumps that excrete the antibacterial agent from the cell before it can reach its target site and exert its effect. The last is using an alternative metabolic pathway. As I have said, there are certain antibiotics which block the metabolic pathway of the bacteria. Now, what the bacteria will do? The bacteria will gain the property of getting the ready metabolite through some alternative pathway from the environment instead of synthesizing it, and finally thus avoiding the antibiotic. Now, another disadvantage of using antibiotic is its effect on the host microbiota. As we all know that the intestinal tract of your healthy fish, like the higher vertebrates, human or any other animals, they have a diversified microbiota in their intestine, which is involved in several important physiological functions like your epithelial proliferation, promotion of nutrient metabolism, and immune responses. Hence, this host microbiota balance is very, very important for maintaining the healthy life of an individual. But it has been seen that antibiotic treatment may eliminate the microorganisms of the normal intestinal microbiota of farmed fish, causing a reduction in the bacterial diversity. And this could facilitate the proliferation or invasion of opportunistic pathogens. This alters your presumably the beneficial host microbiota relationship. Example, the oxytetracycline administered Atlantic salmon was found to have a less diversified gut microbiota, and there was the dominance of antimicrobial or antibiotic resistant Aeromonas in it. Now, the most important or the major concern is the emergence of fish pathogens and human pathogens resistant to antibiotics. As I have discussed earlier, that up to 70 to 80% of the antibiotics administered to fish as medicated feed are not metabolized, and they are excreted in the urine or the fecal matter without complete decomposition. Also, the antibiotics are leached away from the unused food and feces, and they diffuse into the sediments, and ultimately they can be washed away by the currents to the distant sites where they create a havoc because they destroy the natural habitat or the natural flora of that place. This gives rise to a huge proportion of antimicrobial resistant bacteria, and usually these resistant genes get passed on to the fish pathogens and the human pathogens. Aeromonas salmonicida, Aeromonas hydrophila, Edwardsia latata, Yersinia rackeri, Photobacterium damschil, Vibrio angularum are few fish pathogens which have been documented to develop a resistance to antibiotics. Also, antibiotic resistant genes have been transferred by conjugation from fish pathogen Aeromonas salmonicida and Vibrio angularum to human pathogens E. coli and Vibrio cholerae respectively. Now here arises the need for probiotics. For all the above mentioned limitations and the need for an environmental friendly aquaculture, the demand for use of microorganisms or microbial interventions in form of probiotic treatment is on rise. Now, probiotics or your good bacteria, the beneficial bacteria, interact with the host in a number of ways, and they provide a series of beneficial effects such as your enhanced digestion, improved immunity, and disease resistance of the host. Now, moving on to the definition of probiotics. Now, probiotics, it comes from the Greek words that is pro-bios, means for life. That is just the opposite of antibiotic. Anti against life, antibiotic. And this term was coined for the first time by Parker. Lilly and Stilwell for the first time defined probiotics to mean a substance that stimulates growth of other organisms. Fuller revised the definition as a microbial feed supplement which beneficially affects the host animal by improving its intestinal microbial balance. Now, this definition is very important because for the first time, it indicated the live nature, that is the viable nature of the probiotics to be used, and also the intestinal microbial balance it should maintain. So Verstury et al. Suggested the definition of probiotics, which is very much apt for probiotics in aquaculture. That is, probiotics is a live microbial adjunct which has a beneficial effect on the host. Number one, by modifying the host associated or ambient microbial community. Number two, by ensuring improved use of the feed or enhancing its nutritional value. Number three, by enhancing the host response towards the disease. Number four, by improving the quality of its ambient environment. Finally, in 2001, the International Scientific Association for Probiotics and Prebiotics adopted the definition of World Health Organization that probiotics are live microorganisms which, when administered in adequate amounts, confer a health benefit on the host. This is the most accepted definition of probiotics till date. Now, I would just like to brief on the history of discovery of probiotics, which is a bit interesting. Now, all the gentlemen in this slide whom you can see, they believed in one concept. That is, the secret to longevity of the host life lies in the microbiome and the gut. Now, Louis Pasteur, the father of microbiology, in 1857, he for the first time discovered fermentation by lactic acid bacteria. And he said that the lactic acid bacteria produced lactic acid by fermentation of lactose sugar. And these lactic acid inhibited the food growing pathogens in the food and thus prevented the spoilage of the food. Now, Joseph Lister in 1878, he for the first time isolated the pure culture of Lactobacillus. Dr. Henry Tessier in 1899, he was a pediatrician, and based on the legacy of Louis Pasteur, he for the first time isolated Bifidobacterium from the fecal samples of the newborn, breastfeeding newborn or the infants, and he could cure the diarrhea in the newborn babies using this bacteria. Then finally, it was Elie Mechnikov, the famous Russian microbiologist or our Nobel laureate, who conceived the main concept of probiotics. Now, Elie Mechnikov, while working on the theory of aging, he said that there must be some link between the microbiome and the senile degeneration. Senile degeneration means your gradual degeneration in the physical and mental health of the host. And he thought that if lactic acid could prevent the spoilage bacteria in the food, so the same technique or the same hypothesis can be applied in our gut. So Mechnikov, while working in Bulgaria, he came across a special population of people or special population who were dwelling in the Caucasian mountains, and he found that the inhabitants of a particular village, they survived for more than 100 years. And while observing closely, he found that these populations continuously they consumed a fermented milk or a fermented drink in their normal diet. And on further research, Mechnikov finally discovered Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Streptococcus thermophilus, the two bacteria which are responsible for fermentation of milk to curd. And till date, these two bacteria are also used for fermentation of milk to curd. Finally, it was Dr. Minoru Sirhota in 1930 who for the first time found the stable culture, that is Lactobacillus casei sirhota, which was being used to produce the first commercial probiotic drink, that is Yakult. Now moving on to the lactic acid bacteria's probiotics. Till date, organisms belonging to the group lactic acid bacteria have proved to be the best probiotics for human and also in veterinary functions. Lactic acid bacteria is a group of gram-positive rods or coccus-shaped, non-spore forming, non-motile, microaerophilic microorganisms because they require just a limited percentage, that is 2 to 10% of oxygen for their survival, and which produces lactic acid as their major end product during fermentation of carbohydrates. Based on morphology, mode of glucose fermentation, and growth at certain temperatures and range of sugar utilization, lactic acid bacteria has been classified into this 10 genera. Now, lactic acid bacteria are generally associated with habitats which are very rich in nutrients like your food products, milk, meat, vegetables, fermented decaying material, and the mucosal surfaces of the gastrointestinal tract of animals. Now, most probiotics proposed as biological control agents in aquaculture belong to this group. And the important genera that has been used till date as probiotics in aquaculture are your Lactobacillus, Lactococcus, Carnobacterium, Pediococcus, Enterococcus, and Streptococcus. Now, there are 5 ways of mechanism of action and beneficial effect of the Lactobacillus or the probiotics. These are the 5 mechanisms which I am going to brief now. First is the enhancement of the epithelial barrier. Now, as we know that the cross section of the intestine usually contains 4 layers: your mucosa, submucosa, muscular layer, and the adventitia. Now here you can see the mucosa layer comprises of mainly 2 layers. That is your intestinal epithelial cell layer, which forms a monolayer, and above it is the mucus layer, or this is called the glycocalyx. This is made up of mucin, which is a glycosylated protein. It contains immunoglobulins, several electrolytes, and glycolipids. Now, there are different types of important cells present in the intestinal epithelial cellular layer like your enterocytes, which is responsible for your nutrient absorption and production of immunoglobulin, your goblet cell, which produces your mucus, your Paneth cell, which produces several antimicrobial peptides, and this usually recognizes the enteric bacteria through receptors which like toll-like receptors. Now this forms a gut epithelial barrier. This gut epithelial barrier is very, very important because it is the main defense mechanism against infection and inflammation, and disruption of its integrity is one of the primary cause of several intestinal disorders. Now the probiotics can modulate the host gut epithelial barrier function via two things, that is either through their surface components or their metabolites. Now moving on to the surface components. Now there are certain components present on the surface of probiotics like your pili, your surface layer proteins, your capsular polysaccharides, your lipoteichoic acid, your lipopolysaccharides, which constitute the microbial associated molecular patterns. And these can specifically bind to the protein recognition receptors like your knot-like receptors or toll-like receptors in the epithelial cells in the epithelial layer. This in turn regulates your several signaling to produce certain cytokines or chemokines that inhibits your cell death or apoptosis, thereby reducing the inflammation reaction and enhancing the function of the gut epithelium. In addition to this, there are some metabolites which are produced by probiotics like your secreted proteins, your organic acids, bacteriocins, short chain fatty acids. These protect the gut epithelial layer by boosting the immune secretion by the goblet cells, by increasing the production of the antimicrobial peptides, or enhancing the expression of tight junctions protein genes. Now here I would like to mention specifically the short chain fatty acids because these are very, very important nowadays. Now these short chain fatty acids are fatty acids with less than 6 carbon atoms like your butyrate, your propionate, or your acetate. These are produced by your intestinal microbiota by fermentation of the indigestible dietary carbohydrates or the fibers. These are the main source of energy for the epithelial cells of the colon. It boosts the expression of your tight junction proteins, thus repressing your paracellular permeability. It stimulates the goblet cells to secrete mucin, which in turn prevents the pathogenic bacteria from destroying the enterocytes. Now moving to the second mechanism of action, now it is very much required that the candidate probiotic should attach, adhere, then colonize and proliferate in the intestine of the host. So beside surface molecules like your lipoteichoic acid, surface layer associated proteins, lactic acid bacteria also have certain mucin binding proteins that helps in binding of the bacteria with the mucus layer of the epithelium. These are surface adhesive proteins that contain usually two domains and they bind the mucins, and these are found embedded in the peptidoglycan cell wall of the bacteria. There are also certain other proteins like your mucin adhesion promoting protein, which has been reported to mediate the binding of Lactobacillus reuteri and Lactobacillus fermentum to the mucus. Also, beside all these things, there are structures like your fimbriae or your pili, which are thin proteinaceous extensions from the bacterial cells that can promote this adhesion. Now moving on to the third mechanism of action of the probiotics. It is the competitive exclusion of pathogenic microorganisms. It is a mechanism used by one species of bacteria to exclude or reduce the growth of another species. This was for the first time it was used by Greenberg for the mode of action by which probiotic antagonizes the potential pathogen, and it does it by giving it a tough competition for nutrient or the adhesive site in the digestive tract, or the probiotics can also inhibit the pathogens by production of certain inhibitory compounds. Moving on to the competition for nutrients or the space. Now, adhesion ability allows the probiotics to compete with the pathogenic bacteria for the binding sites. Now, if they bind to the same receptor and the affinity of the probiotic is higher for that receptor, then definitely it is going to displace the pathogen. Second, by steric hindrance. If the probiotic is larger in size, then it masks the specific receptor sites for the pathogenic microorganisms. And another important factor is the probiotics have the capacity to aggregate among themselves, that is called autoaggregation, or they have the capacity to aggregate with the pathogens, and that is called co-aggregation. Now, through autoaggregation among themselves or co-aggregation with other probiotics, they form an adequate mass of probiotic layer which forms a barrier in the host epithelium, thus preventing the colonization of the pathogens. And second, if the probiotics co-aggregate with the pathogen, then definitely it is going to entrap it, thus preventing its attachment on the host epithelium. Now, as I have said that the probiotics can also, especially the lactic acid bacteria, they are known to produce certain inhibitory compounds, which is very harmful for your pathogenic bacteria. Now, what are these compounds? They may be the organic acids, the hydrogen peroxide, diacetyl acetone, exopolysaccharides, or the bacteriocins. Now we know that lactic acid bacteria produces lactic acid on fermentation of the carbohydrates. Thus, there is a reduction in the pH, and this reduced pH is inhibitory for the growth of several gram-negative pathogens. In certain other group of bacteria like your Bifidobacterium bifidum, Lactobacillus johnsoni, Lactobacillus crispatus, Lactobacillus gasseri, they have been found to produce hydrogen peroxide. The antimicrobial effect of hydrogen peroxide is attributed to its strong oxidizing effect of the bacterial cell. Also, lactic acid bacteria like your Lactobacillus rhamnosus, Lactobacillus plantarum, and Leuconostomy mesenteroides have been found to produce diacetyl and acetone during heterolactic fermentation as a byproduct along with lactic acid, and these are found to be inhibitory to certain pathogens. Exopolysaccharides like your dextrin, inulin, mutain are produced by Lactobacillus plantarum, Leuconostomy citrium, johnsoni, Bifidobacterium above the cell envelope as a capsule or a slime layer. And EPS have antimicrobial action against E. coli, your Salmonella typharium, your Listeria monocytogenes. Now moving on to the most important inhibitory compound, that is your bacteriocins. Now bacteriocins are family of ribosomally synthesized peptides that usually show antimicrobial activity against closely related species. But nowadays, their broad range of activity has also been found. For example, your L. plantarum, Lactobacillus plantarum, which is a gram-positive bacteria, it produces plantricin bacteriocin, which is active against Aeromonas hydrophila. Bacteriocin were first discovered by your Gracia in 1925. He called it first discovery as a colicin because it was discovered from E. coli, and the name bacteriocin was proposed by Jacob. The bacteriocins are usually given specific names based on the bacterial species of origin, that is your colicins from E. coli, plantricin is produced from L. plantarum, salivarisin is produced from L. salivarius. Now moving on to the major differences between bacteriocin and your conventional antibiotics. Now the main difference first is the synthesis. Bacteriocins are ribosomally synthesized during primary phase of the growth, whereas antibiotics are your secondary metabolites. Bacteriocin usually have a narrow bioactivity spectra, whereas antibiotic have a broad, and bacteriocin are active even at a very low concentration, that is nano to micromolar range, whereas antibiotic are active at micro to millimolar range. Bacteriocin are found to be thermally stable. They have a wide range of pH. They have no taste, no color or odor. They are degradable. They can be degraded by your proteolytic enzymes. Then moving on to one of the most important factor, the possibility of development of resistant strain among their target bacteria. In case of bacteriocin, it is very unlikely because these are very fast acting and are highly potent even at very low concentration. Whereas antibiotic, we know that they are very good at developing resistance. Then mode of action, bacteriocin, they act actually through the killing mechanism involves your pore formation or inhibition of cell wall biosynthesis, and antibiotics, as we have discussed, the cell membrane or intercellular targets. Now bacteriocin, because they are gene coded, they can be easily bioengineered, through which their bioactivity can be maintained and the specificity towards a target can also be maintained. But this is not possible in case of your antibiotics. Moreover, No toxicity towards eukaryotic cells has been seen for bacteriocin, whereas hepatotoxicity has been seen towards fish by using antibiotics. And the application of bacteriocin, it involves your food and clinical, whereas your antibiotic can be only used for clinical purposes. Now moving on to the classification of the bacteriocin. They are usually classified into two groups, class 1 and class 2. The third group exists, but usually they are named as bacteriolysins because they are lytic enzymes rather than peptides. Now moving on to the class 1 bacteriocins. Class 1 bacteriocins are usually called your lantibiotics. They are small peptides, usually less than 5 kilodalton, heat stable, and they possess an unusually post-translationally modified amino acid residue, that is your lanthionine or 3-methyl-lanthionine. This gives a circular structure to this bacteriocin, because of which they are very stable. Your best example of class 1 bacteriocins are your lysines. The lysine was first reported, and it is the most extensively studied and commercialized bacteriocin produced from Lactococcus lactis. Now moving on to the second class of bacteriocin, or the lantantibiotics. These are mostly naturally forming bacteriocins. They are small, heat stable. They do not contain the lanthionine amino acid, but they are further divided into 4 different classes, that is 2A, 2B, 2C and 2D. Now moving on to the 2A bacteriocin, these are pediocin-like bacteriocin, and the name is such that because the first bacteriocin belonging to this group was the pediocin PA1, which was discovered from Pediococcus acidilacticea. Now this group of bacteriocins show their inhibitory action against one of the most important foodborne pathogen, that is your Listeria monocytogenes, because they have a distinct conserved sequence YG-NGV in the N-terminal region. Example are your pediocin, your saracacin, your leucosin A and carnobacteriocins. Moving on to the class 2B bacteriocin. Class 2B bacteriocins are 2 peptides which should act synergistically with each other in order to be active. These are your lactococins G and F, lactation F, plantricin EF and JK. Then class 2C bacteriocins. Class 2C bacteriocins are usually a circular bacteriocins. Here the N and the C terminals are covalently linked to form a ring-like structure which gives it stability. Example, your enterocin, lactocycline Q. Then is your last group of the class 2 bacteriocin, that is your class 2D bacteriocin, which comprises the remaining bacteriocin, and these are usually miscellaneous. They are 1 peptide, non-pediocin, linear group. Your acidocin, enterocin P, enterocin B and lacticin Q. Then the class 3 bacteriocin are usually, as I have told, they are called the bacteriolysins because of their lytic enzymes which they produce. They are large molecules, big peptides and heat sensitive. Example, your helveticins produced by your Lactobacillus helveticus, your acidophyllocin and your lacticin A and B. Now moving on to the synthesis of this bacteriocin. Now it is very important that the bacteriocin should show inhibition, or the bacteriocin shouldn't act against the producer strain, and hence the bacteriocins are synthesized as biologically inactive precursor peptides. They are usually synthesized in the inactive forms that contain the N-terminal leader peptide attached to the C-terminal propeptides, and these then undergo enzymatic process to yield the matured active bacteriocin when they are exported to the cells. Now moving on to the killer mechanism of the bacteriocin. Usually the mode of action of bacteriocin is different among different classes, because to apply the killing mechanism, the bacteriocin require a receptor molecule or a docking molecule which is found in the target bacterial cell membrane, and this differs among different classes and subclasses. Now moving on to the killing mechanism of class 1 bacteriocin. Lysine, the best example is lysine. Now lysine has 2 killing mechanisms. Either it will inhibit the cell wall synthesis. This it does at low concentration. At low concentration of lysine, lysine will bind to this lipid 2. Okay, and this lipid 2 acts as the main transporter of the peptidoglycan subunit, which is required for the cell wall synthesis. And when lysine 2 binds with lipid 2, it blocks or inhibits the formation of the cell wall, and thus the cell dies. The second mechanism of action is your pore formation. Now, this happens when the concentration of niacin is more. Now, at high concentration, the niacin lipid complex initiates a membrane insertion that creates a pore in the bacterial cell, which leads to leakage of your cellular components such as your ions, ATP, amino acids, nucleotide, thus resulting in termination of all biosynthetic processes, leading to the cell death. Now, moving on to the class 2 bacteriocin, they exert the antimicrobial action by inducing your membrane permeabilization that subsequently leads to leakage of cytoplasmic molecule, causing cell death of the target bacteria. I'll just highlight the important points only. Class 2A bacteriocin, the receptor molecule here is a mannose phosphotransferase system that acts as the docking molecule for the killing mechanism. Class 2B bacteriocin, that is the 2-peptide bacteriocin, here the membrane pores formed are relatively very small in size. Hence, only monovalent cations can move out of the cell, but not the divalent cations. Then the class 2C bacteriocin, now this display a broader spectrum of antimicrobial activity towards various foodborne spoilage and pathogenic bacteria. Now, for example, the target receptor for Garvicin ML is a maltose ABC transporter protein, which facilitates the efflux of intracellular solutes that eventually leads to cell death. Now, moving on to the class 2D bacteriocin or our miscellaneous bacteriocins, the killing mechanism is very usually poorly understood. However, there is a unique killing mechanism by lacticin Q. Now, these lacticin Q, they do not need any specific receptors. Because of the cationic nature of this lacticin Q, it will bind to the negatively charged phospholipid bilayer through electrostatic interaction, and this membrane lipid layer will flip-flop, resulting in the formation of a huge toroidal pore, which is 4.6 to 6.6 nm. That causes leakage of intracellular components including iron, ATP, and even small proteins. Then finally, this lacticin Q molecule translocates itself from the outer to the inner membrane and the pore closes. Now, moving on to the application of the bacteriocin. The bacteriocin can be used as biopreservatives in food because they are tasteless, they are odorless, they are colorless. Utilized for biopreservation of food either alone or in combination with other methods of preservation known as hurdle technology. And there are two common approaches in which the bacteriocins can be applied in the food. First, you can directly inoculate the bacteriocin producing lactic acid bacteria into the food, or you can add the bacteriocin in its purified form as a food preservative. This minimizes the use of chemical preservatives in the food. Now, moving on to the clinical application, which has not gained the momentum yet, but there is a very positive hope that someday the bacteriocin will completely going to replace the antibiotics, because due to their strong potency against antibiotic resistant pathogens, the bacteria may be a viable solution to the growing problem of multi-drug resistant pathogens. Now, as I have discussed earlier, that the bacteriocins are gene encoded, synthesized by the ribosome, so they can be easily amenable through bioengineering, and this we can easily increase or decrease their bioactivity and also specify their target microorganisms. Now, the fifth, one of the most important mechanism of action of probiotics, which is the enhancement of the immune response. Now, the immune system of fish have two integral components, that is your innate, natural or non-specific defense system, adaptive, acquired or specific immune system. Now, the non-specific immune system, as fish is a lower vertebrate, the synthesis of antibodies in the fish is relatively slow in comparison with antibody production in the higher vertebrates. Hence, the fish as a lower vertebrate, it poses an intact and important innate immune system. Now, this innate immune system parameters like your respiratory burst activity or your antiprotease activities, they constitute the first line of defense against any invading pathogen or any infection. These inherent mechanisms offer immediate and permanent protection against wide variety of pathogens by preventing their attachment, their invasion, or their multiplication of the organisms. Now, the respiratory burst activity is one of the major functional indicators of the phagocytic cells in the system, and it is believed to be important in killing of the microbes. Then moving on to the antiprotease, now we know that the pathogens usually produce some proteolytic enzymes that destroys the host tissue. Now this antiprotease acts as the protease inhibitor, and it is found in the plasma of the fish. Now several studies have shown that probiotic feeds increased the innate immune parameters such as your respiratory activity and antiprotease activity significantly in fish. Also, probiotics modulates a balance in several of in expressions of several immune related genes like your tumor necrosis factor alpha and interleukin 10 that acts as pro and anti-inflammatory cytokine respectively, and they play a leading role in non-specific immune responses. So the fish-fed probiotic diet are in an immunologically elevated state, and this helps in resisting any pathogenic insult by improving the immune readiness. Your protection against aeromonosis, adversualosis, enteric red mouth disease, furunculosis, streptococcosis, vibriosis have been successfully accomplished through probiotic feeding. Now, another important beneficial action of the probiotics is it acts as a source of nutrient and enzymatic contribution to digestive process. We know that the probiotics resides in the intestine. It uses the carbohydrate and produces or carbohydrate or any other food substances of the host and produces several important enzymes like your lipase, amylase and your protease. Also, it synthesizes several vitamins like your Lactococcus lactis, L-Gasseri, Reuteri, Bifidobacterium have been found to produce vitamin B, especially your folic acid and riboflavin, which is very much important inside the intestine of the host. Hence, the probiotic supplement can show better feed efficiency and growth performance in aquatic animals. This is attributed to better feed utilization and improved nutrient absorption and digestive activity by enhancing the synthesis of your vitamins, your cofactors and enzyme activity by the probiotics in the diet. Now, I'd like to mention an important point, the criteria of the potential candidates for use as probiotics. Now, for an organism to be considered as probiotics, following criteria need to be fulfilled. It should be non-pathogenic and non-toxic to the host. It should adhere to the host's intestine. It should be able to survive through the gastrointestinal tract of the host. It should have beneficial effect on the host and should maintain viability on prolonged storage also. The future aspects. Now, probiotics may serve simultaneously as an immunomodulating feed additive useful for disease protection, as well as it can be a growth enhancer in eco-friendly aquaculture practices. However, most commercial probiotics used in fish are of non-fish origin. Usually they are the lactic acid bacteria or the bacillus which have been isolated from your dairy or human sources or any other animal sources, and sometimes they have shown limited success or low efficacy. Now, it has been suggested that efficacy of probiotics is highest in the host species from which they are isolated because they are more adapted to the environment. Hence, such strains can perform better as they have already adhered to the gut wall of the host and are well adapted to compete with the host. Another important point is functionality of multi-strain or multi-species probiotic is more effective or more consistent than monostrain probiotic because probiotics act synergistically with each other in which the bacteria complement each other's health effect. Hence, the future research should focus on development of a library of putative probionts or the indigenous probionts from aquatic environment sources and application of the compound probiotics in aquaculture system. Now, I would like to highlight a few. I would like to highlight the probiotics research at ICAR-CIFA. It is just a part of it. We have initiated the formulation of a probiotic feed for Indian major carp, Labiorhita rohu, which is one of the most important major carp. And for this, the strains which we have used have been isolated from the freshwater fish intestine itself. So the isolation and it involves the isolation and identification of lactic acid bacteria from freshwater fish intestine. 76 strains of lactic acid bacteria have been isolated from different segments of fish intestine, that is your foregut, midgut and your hindgut. And they have been identified through your 16S rDNA sequencing and HSP60 gene sequencing as Lactobacillus plantarum, Lactobacillus pentosius, Lactobacillus fermentum, Lactobacillus delbrueckii subspecies bulgaricus, Lactobacillus brevis, Lactobacillus reuteri, Lactobacillus salivarius, Pediococcus pentosacchaeus, Pediococcus acidilactici, Vacella paramesenteroides, Vacella siberia, Enterococcus faecium, and Enterococcus durans. Out of these 76 strains, it has been found that it is Lactobacillus plantarum was found to be the dominating strain, and lactic acid bacteria occurred more frequently in the hindgut of the fish. So these are some pictures of the lactic acid bacteria pore plated and streaked on your one of the best media for isolation of lactobacillus, that is your MRS media, that is your Diemann Rogosa Sharp media. Now these are the gram stem images of the lactic acid bacteria isolated from fish intestine. Here you can see the Lactobacillus plantarum, which is usually Coccobacillary in form, Lactobacillus fermentum, which has very good rods, Lactobacillus brevis are your good rods of short and medium size. This is Lactobacillus salivarius. This is Vacella paramesenteroides, which is in between the coccus and the rods. They have typical structures which you can see. Then this is Pediococcus pentosacchaeus, which has the characteristic formation of tetrad. During their form, they remain as tetrad or in a group of 8 bacteria. Moving on to some in vitro tests which we have done. Like all the 76 strains of bacteria, they were subjected to some important in vitro test like viability test under low pH, viability test under high concentration of bile, antimicrobial activity against one of the most important fish pathogen, that is your Aeromonas hydrophila, and presence or detection of presence of bacteriocin producing genes. It was found that most of the strains showed good survival in acid and bile tolerance test and antimicrobial activity against fish pathogen Aeromonas hydrophila. Different bacteriocin producing genes have also been detected in several strains by PCR. Here you can see the zone of inhibition which is formed by the Lactobacillus SM33 and SM16 against Aeromonas hydrophila inoculation. Okay. These are some detection of the bacteriocin genes produced by your plantaricin produced by your L. plantarum. This is the salivarisin bacteriocin which is produced by your salivarisin P. Now moving on to the in vivo feeding trial. Now finally, out of those 76 strains, we selected 5 strains which showed the best results in the in vitro tests. And we formulated a feed for Rohu mixing all these 5 putative strains in equal proportion to a final concentration of 10 to the power 9 CFU per gram of the diet. The 5 strains were Lactobacillus plantarum SM16, Lactobacillus plantarum SM33, it is a multiple bacteriocin producing strain, L. fermentum SM51, L. brevis SM56, Pediococcus pentosacchaeus SM64, and the Rohu fingerlings of about 20 gram in size were fed either the lactic acid bacteria supplemented diet or a controlled diet without any supplementation of lactic acid bacteria for a period of 30 days. Now, immune responses like your respiratory burst activity of the blood phagocytes, blood phagocyte serum antiprotease activity level and expression of immune related genes like your TNF alpha, IL-10 and HSP70 in kidney, liver and intestine of host were assessed at regular intervals. Also, growth performances were assessed in terms of your weight gain percentage, specific growth rate, feed conversion ratio at the end of the 30 days trial. And at the end of the 30 days, we challenged the probiotic treated and the control treated fish with intraperitoneal injection of 0.25 ml of 10 LD50 dose of virulent strain of Aeromonas hydrophila. We found that there was a significant improvement in the final weight, in the weight gain percentage, the specific growth rate, and improvement in the feed conversion ratio of probiotic treated feed in comparison to the control group at the end of the 30 days of experiment. Also, the innate immune responses were also very good in the probiotic treated fish. Here you can see the NBT activity, which is an indicator of the respiratory burst activity. It increased on the 15th and the 30th day of the probiotic treated fish. Also, the antiproteus activity increased on the 15th and the 30th day in the probiotic treated fish in comparison to the controls. This is the TNF alpha gene expression and this is the IL-10 gene expression. Here you can see that there was also an increased expression of TNF alpha and IL-10 gene in the intestine and liver on the day 15 and 30th of the probiotic treated fish in comparison to your 0 day. Finally, the challenge study which we did on the 30th day, it showed that the post-challenge survival percentage was 33.33% for the control group, whereas the survival percentage in the probiotic treated group was 93.33%. So higher expression of the cytokine genes combined with the results of other immune parameters tested overall implies that the fish fed probiotic diet are in an immunologically elevated state. This is more likely responsible for protection and increased survival of the probiotic fed rohu against Aeromonas hydrophila challenge conducted. Here you can see the control group infected fish showing signs of hemorrhagic septicemia. These have not been treated with probiotics, but these are the probiotic treated fish. They have been injected with Aeromonas hydrophila and you can see they are very healthy. Here there are no signs of hemorrhagic septemia or pathological alterations. Hence, the consortium of putative probionts may therefore serve simultaneously as an immunomodulating feed additive useful for disease protection and growth enhancer in eco-friendly freshwater aquaculture practices. However, there is a felt need to further research and validate the data in this field before the probiotic fish feed with defined protective effect is promoted. So that's all. Thank you. And finally, I would like to acknowledge my host institute, ICR CIFA, Bhubaneswar, for providing me the necessary infrastructure and facilities required for conducting my research experiment. My mentor, Dr. Shri Prakash Mahanti sir, Principal Scientist, ICR CIFA, for his constant encouragement and superb guidance in the field of probiotics. My co-mentor, Dr. Nikhil Maiti, Emeritus Scientist, ICR CIFA, for his scholarly research guidance and constant supervision. The entire scientist fraternity, all my seniors, my juniors, all my staff members of ICR CIFA for their constant help and affectionate support. My entire research career owes a lot to each and every one of them actually. And my gratitude to DBT BioCare for granting me support and awarding a project under Early Career Scientist Scheme. And last but not the least, my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Sophia Priyadarshini Das and Dr. Ashutosh Srivastav sir for your invitation to your esteemed institute, that is Amity Institute of Marine Science and Technology, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to deliver a guest lecture on probiotics and aquaculture. And finally, my young students or the young minds who have been so patiently listening to me till now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Usha, for giving us so much time. Like you are giving us that much time for our students and all. So now over to you, sir, if you are having any questions or it's the house is open for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Usha. And I must say that it was a wonderful presentation covering most of the aspects related with the probiotics. So big clap to
Thank you,
you,
sir.
and it may be very useful for all the students. And just for the knowledge of the student, I must say that this is an area where you have a lot of entrepreneurship opportunities also. Uh, Nowadays, a recent thing which I must tell you, there are four terms which we use, like antibiotic, probiotics, then we have prebiotics also.
Yes.
So prebiotics is basically kind of food, fermented food, which we are providing for the probiotics. Then another term which is now coming up, some people were using that term since last 25 years. But recently, in this year itself, in 2020, the definition has been improved. That is for symbionts.
Symbiotics, sir.
So symbiotics is basically a combination of probiotics and prebiotics. I think it was published recently in Nature Reviews or something. It was very recent. So
Yes.
that is an area where I must compliment Dr. Usha for your study. That is wonderful work. You have covered every aspect, immunological parameter, then you have also checked the pathogenicity and everything. So it's very good. And I would like to see in future some experiment in the form of symbiotics also, because I think for the feed, it is a very important area, because nowadays, that lot of our export has been denied due to presence of minute amount of antibiotics. So we need to focus more and more on probiotics.
Yes.
And nowadays in the environment, we have a lot of pathogens also. So we need to protect our fish. And as we are, thinking to increase the fish production, so obviously stocking density will increase, and that will also affect the immunity of the fish. Stress level will increase, so there will be more and more chances of the pathogens, because you will increase the feed concentration in the pond. So we need to focus more and more on the probiotics.
Yes.
And in addition to probiotics, I think it will be wonderful to see the effect of some symbiotics also. So that
Yes.
will be an excellent thing. And I will request you, if you can send us some of the publication related with this area, so
Okay.
that we can provide these research article to our students. They can read it in detail. They can have a better idea about the research also. And
Yes.
Dr. Sophia, I will request you that you can have these publications and this presentation from Dr. Usha, and please circulate it to all the students, so that later on also they can read it, they can see this presentation, and if they have any question, they can forward it to you, and then you can forward it to Dr. Usha, and I'm sure that she will give answer whenever she will have the time. So thank you so
Completely my
much.
pleasure, sir, and my honor.
It's our
And
pleasure.
yes, sir, I would just like to add something, because it was, I thought that I'll be taking the class of just the junior students.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I focused mainly on the mechanism of action, and
That's good. Yeah.
not broadly on the work which I am doing. But here I
Right.
would like to just, so it's wonderful, sir, that you have mentioned the prebiotics and symbiotic term, and that is the burning area now of
Yes.
research. And sir, I would just like to add that in probiotics, the main important, there are three factors, more important factors is your dose, the frequency of administration, and we should know we should have an optimum regime of administration of the food. Even
Ex-
nowadays, sir, it is being told that you cannot keep on giving probiotics for a prolonged period, because there may be, in some cases, immunotolerance may develop.
Right.
If you go on, yes, and that's why I said it is very important. We should know what should be the point of intervention of the probiotics. That is the most important thing. If there are certain fishes in which they have motility at during a particular period, like in Odisha, I have seen most of the fishes face motility during this period, during the onset of the winter. So
Right.
if it's possible, let us give the probiotics for let us for this 2 months, let us give the probiotics and see how the bacteria are, whether they are adhering or not, whether they are colonizing or not. And then we can see how long is the immunity, how long the immunity remains, or the bacteria, how long it persists in the intestine. Is it able to, can it completely colonize it in and flourish, or it will be washed out after a definite period? That is very, very much important, sir.
Yes, I think
That is what we think, sir.
with these kind of studies, if SIFA will recommend this thing, government can make a policy that on a regular interval you can provide
Yes.
this kind of dosage, this kind of probiotics. That will be good. And I'm sure that this prebiotics and probiotics, both they will be species specific also,
Yes, sir.
because
They are very, very.
every fish have its own immunity system.
Yes, sir.
They respond in a different way. So we need to, right now you are focusing on the carbs. Maybe some more study will be required in near future in the different other food species, especially. Then we
Exactly.
also need to see whether these have any effect on the human also,
Yes, sir.
because I'm little bit in dilemma that whether these probiotics which are useful for the fish, are they safe for the human consumption, because ultimately, of course, you are removing the intestine, but their secondary metabolites may be present in the fish muscles also. So some study may required for that also.
Yes,
It
sir.
is just my, I
Yes,
may be
that's
wrong.
what yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry to interrupt, sir, but sir, that is what we have planned to do. Because as I have mentioned in that last point, that a broad aspect of research is required in this field. Before
Exactly.
we move on to the field, the huge number of field experiments are required. We have to involve many fish species, including different strains and species of bacteria.
True.
That is what is required. But usually, sir, the probiotics are safe, but as we are isolating it from the fish itself, we are intending it for the fish, so we have isolated it from the fish, expecting that it will colonize in a better way in the intestine of the fish, sir. That is
Okay.
our main, that was our main thing, and it won't have any negative effect on the fish. But sir, as you have said, this is a very important point, that we should look what will be its effect on human, whether it is producing some other secondary metabolites or not, which is harmful for the human in the long run. Like that, we need to do that, sir. So broad aspect of research is required, sir.
Yes, that's very good. And I must offer you one thing, that if you need any kind of research collaboration with MIT, we have excellent facility in the area of microbiology, in the area of molecular biology, or any other aspect. So we are open for the collaborations. So you can
Thank you
talk
so
with your
much, sir.
mentor also.
Yes.
I will be very happy to collaborate in this area with my microbiologist team. So that will be a good thing. And then we have Sophia also with us. So she can be part of that collaboration as a molecular person. She can work in that area also. So that will be an excellent
She is
collaboration.
always the bridge between SIFA and Amity. And a
Yes,
wonderful
she will be.
bridge.
She will be. That's why we have selected her.
Yeah. Yes, sir, she has a lot of potential. She's a wonderful senior.
Yes,
I
I
have
know.
learned a lot of things from her. She's my, I call her Guru Ma.
Good, good, good. So over to you, Dr. Sophia.
Yeah. So thank you, Usha. I think anyone has any question? Student?
Dr. Sophia, maybe Dr. Usha, if she has some opportunities for our student for the internship or something, that also you can discuss, because now our
Oh,
student, they are looking for the place for the
intern.
what internship.
Yeah.
So later on you can discuss these aspects also.
Definitely, definitely, sir. So again, I'm asking if there is any question, then you can ask or you can type it on the chat box, or else you can send it to me and I'll send it to Dr. Usha. Is it okay? So I must uh, like I'm waiting for some questions at least from Deepti, Mansi.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good
Yeah.
afternoon.
Ma'am, it's been a pleasure to hear your presentation, and because I was busy with my exam, so I couldn't like contribute much more in it. But still, we have met in SIFA, and it was a great pleasure there. And now seeing you here.
Yes. Yes, she's Mansi, right.
No,
So,
Dipti.
Deepti.
Dipti. Okay, Dipti. They were two girl and one boy, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
I remember their faces very nicely. They were very sweet and cordial.
Srishti,
Yeah.
Rama, and Deepti, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very decent and very nice students, sir.
Thank you,
you.
ma'am. So I just wanted to say hi and wanted to say that it's a pleasure to attend one of your sessions now. Like after
It's
meeting you and
a pleasure, dear. To interact with the young minds like you. I'm not here for any guest lecture. I'm just here to share what I have learned and what I am doing through all these years, because these are very good aspects, and you should know all these things. And it is very good on part of your sir and your ma'am that they are trying to help us to interact with you all and pass on this collaboration should be there.
yes,
Exchange of
ma'am.
thoughts, exchange of mind, then only can science can progress.
Exactly.
Yes,
Dr. Usha, I must tell you that from this year onwards, what we have done, that in every course, not only in program, in each course, every faculty need to organize some guest lectures or some invited talk. Idea was that it's not only the faculty, but they should get some extra knowledge in their field. So one of these lectures like you, that will give a broad idea about the field, what kind of research is going on, what are the recent trends. So that will open up lot of opportunities, lot of ideas in the young students' mind. So that was the overall thought process which we are following at the Amity in each program, in each course. We believe that every student should be developed holistically. They should have the broad knowledge so they can enter in the industry easily. And these kind of lectures that help us a lot to develop or to nurture the student in a best way.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. That's a very good thing, sir. We need to, the more the exposure the students get, the more they get to know what is going on, sir.
Yes.
That is because science is growing very fast. That is the thing. What we are doing today, that is outdated or old to the next day. So they should know what is going everywhere.
Yeah.
This is a very good thing, sir. And now, sir, they are being blessed with technology. They have technology in their hands, which we didn't have in our time, sir. Or perhaps we had, but you didn't have in your time, sir. So
No,
that is
I
the
am not
thing.
that much old. Don't worry.
Sorry, sir. I didn't mean that. Okay, sir.
So,
Then
Mansi and Upmanyu, Hemprabha, any question, any comment? You all can switch on your camera, please. Mansi, Hemprabha, Surbi, Aisha, Hemprabha, any question, any comment?
No, sir. No, sir.
Upmanyu?
No, sir.
Okay. Mansi?
So, like the presentation was very detailed, so thank you, ma'am, for that. Some of it, like I couldn't understand like all of it, but whatever I understood, like I feel like it will definitely help me. And I didn't really think of this part, like this type of research before, and you've really opened my eyes to something that's totally different. I never really thought that there could be research in this field, like making fish food. I just thought, you just go to the store, buy it, and throw it in the tank. I didn't know that there's so much research going into like formulating it. So it's very interesting to know that. Thank you, ma'am.
It's all my pleasure, dear.
So I think now you can conclude, Dr. Sophia.
yeah, thank you, Dr. Usha, from from the family of AIMST, from the HY, from all the faculty members and staff, students. I must thank you for your time, precious time you have spare here. And thank you to sir also. He let you like free from the work, and he agreed to give you time for me at least.
Yes.
So
Thank
thank you to sir also. Just uh, tell him that I'm just thankful to him also. So now, if there is no questions, and I must thank you from the core of my heart that you have agreed to give a lecture on this
Didi, that I had
probiotics.
you didn't do that. That I had to. When you have said I have to, I had to, Didi.
Okay.
Otherwise, you show your seniority to me now when you'll be here. Well, jokes
Oh,
apart, I agreed. Just when you requested, on your first request only, I agreed because I am very much. I told you that it is completely my pleasure and my honor to interact with you all, with your esteemed organization, with Sir, to whom I am interacting for the first time. And it's a really a wonderful experience. I'll be looking for a few more lectures also, if you give the invitations.
definitely. We will definitely
In the
like.
even semester also, we can organize some more talk from Dr. Usha, and
Yeah.
I will also talk to your Dr. Swen, director. He is a good friend of mine, so I will talk to him also if he has time that maybe he can deliver some talk on ornamental fisheries.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Wonderful speaker also and a wonderful scientist.
He's a wonderful human being,
Yes, sir. He's a wonderful
and
human. That is very much
he,
essential nowadays in
and
science.
he is a great photographer as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He's a great photographer. That's why he's in the ornamental section, no, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
And sir, sometimes I'll find some time and I'll let you introduce to my mentor, Dr. Shiprakash
Sure.
Mahanti, sir, who is a
Yeah.
man of probiotics in CIFA.
Okay.
He is the pioneer of probiotics in CIFA, sir. He has
Dr.
completed his.
Sophia, you can talk to him.
Yeah.
Maybe he can deliver a talk. I was discussing
Actually,
you is
yeah.
yesterday.
Actually,
Maybe we
I'm
can
just.
make it one day program. So
Yes,
we
sir.
can have
Definitely.
more and more people from the different organizations, maybe 3, 4 people from CIFA
Yeah.
itself, and
Yeah.
make it a national symposium.
Yeah. Definitely, sir.
So we can plan this thing, I think, somewhere in the month of February. So then
Yeah.
all the senior batches will be there. So start
Yes.
planning on that way.
Oh, that is the thing,
So
sir.
we will
So that.
discuss it and just formulate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely, sir. Okay then. So now we're gonna wind up this session. Thank you again, Musha from AIMST, and we're looking forward to collaborate with you. And if you have any time, then just let us know about our students if they have any questions, and I'll just pass it on to you. Okay. Okay then.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank
thank you,
you.
Dr. Usha, thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
sir.
Sophia.
Thank you,
Thank you.
students.
Thank you, students.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Didi, I'm taking leave. Huh?
Yeah, definitely.